What's the most terrifying home alone experience you've ever had? Was chowing down some steak and, in my haste, got a large chunk lodged in my esophagus. That shit is scary enough when you're eating dinner surrounded by folks, but when you're the only person in the house, it is goddamn terrifying. After a few unsuccessful attempts at coughing that fucker up, I resorted to sticking my fingers down there and just managing to fish it out. This was followed by 5-10 minutes of staring at this chewed-up piece of steak sitting on the carpet pondering life. Then I went back to video games. I was like 15 and was home by myself watching a scary movie. It's nighttime and I hear something literally scraping against the side of my house. I am freaking the fuck out. It keeps going. I finally get the balls to go outside and look, and it's our fucking goat eating the damn grass weeds and shit right outside my window, and he's scraping his damn horns on the outside of the house. Similar but different. I go outside to grab something, can't remember. Turn my head to my left, and outside of my sister's room, which is right next to mine, is this silhouette of a crouched, demon-like thing. Its eyes were glinting from the moonlight looking at me. I was frozen solid, just staring at whatever it was. Got the balls to move back inside, somehow fell asleep. Next morning walked outside, and it was the fucking wheelbarrow. The eyes were the bolts on the wheelbarrow, ha. I was 16, a depressingly long time ago, and on GCSE study leave, so I was home alone in the middle of the day. My family home is near a huge military base. I went into the kitchen to get a drink and suddenly hear the base's siren start. The siren that signifies a major incident, i.e. nuclear attack. I'd recently watched Threads, so I almost wet myself in fear, ran and grabbed some food, water and blankets, and shut myself in the tiny hallway that is the only room in the house without windows. I genuinely thought I was about to die all alone in a nuclear holocaust. Anyway, an hour or so later and the blast hadn't come, so I thought I'd risk crawling out, retrieved the phone and rang my mom at work. Turns out the base had notified everyone in the area that they'd be testing the siren and not to panic. Mom had just forgotten to pass on the message. It was raining, about to be dark. I'm watching a movie on TV. The volume is quite loud since I put on the surround sound. Suddenly, I hear a knocking or someone trying to open the back door. I mute the sounds. I thought, oh, it must be the wind and rain. We do have a lot of junk in the back, so maybe things are blowing around. Then I hear it again. It's consistent. If it is someone, then who the hell would go through the back, that knocking, or go through the front? Man, this ain't good. Anyone who is up to no good goes through the back door or windows. I'm down for whatever. The kitchen leads to the back door. So I grab a knife. I yell, "You don't know who you're fucking with. You have 3 seconds to get out." I still hear knocking. I said to myself, this is it. I open the door wide open with the knife in front of me pointed at whoever it would be. It was my grandma. She doesn't speak English very well. I was like, "Grandma got on it. Why did you go through the front?" She said I wasn't opening the door and she was getting wet, so she ran to the back where there was a cover over the door. TLDR, I almost killed my grandma. I was probably 16 at the time. I came home from softball practice, and everyone else was at work, so I was home alone with my dog. I was watching TV when I heard the basement door slam. We have a small basement apartment for my sister who was living with us at the time. It didn't strike as odd. I thought my sister had come home early. My dog ran downstairs, so I thought he went to greet her. Anyway, I went to the bathroom, and I noticed my sister never came upstairs to say hi, and my dog wasn't around. I looked outside to see my dog running up and down the block. I went downstairs to realize that the separate entrance into the house was wide open. Someone opened the basement door, heard that the television was on, heard my dog come down to find them, and ran out. Needless to say, I was scared shitless for some time until we got a security system. I was home alone for the first time at night, and I was watching TV. Someone knocked on the door for a while, but I didn't think anything of it, as I normally did. As a tactic to avoid contact with the Mormons that frequent my street, I hid out of sight behind the couch and waited. A few minutes later, I figured they were gone and I went back to TV watching. Within seconds, 5-10 police cars and officers on foot were searching my neighborhood with searchlights and flashlights. Never found out what they were searching for, but I was very glad I didn't open the door. I was babysitting at a house that was kinda in the middle of nowhere, so right off the bat, scary as shit. The baby is asleep in his room, and I'm watching TV waiting for the parents to come home. It's about 10ish. All of a sudden I hear this horrifying sound that I can only describe as demonic laughter. A huge group of laughing demons. I'm losing my shit. After panicking for several minutes, I realize I'm up in the mountains, in Arizona. It's definitely a pack of coyotes. I had never heard a group of them before, but when they're all together like that, they sound like some scary motherfuckers. Not the stereotypical howl you would expect from movies. I had a very similar experience when babysitting in the middle of nowhere up at the mountains on the coast. I remember it was about 9:00 p.m. and the kids' parents would be getting home in like an hour or so. I had put the kids to bed, so was downstairs by myself. Watching TV, however, every so often the TV would flicker with static. To be honest, it was starting to scare the shit out of me. It wasn't until the point when I looked up from the TV and out the nearby window when I lost my shit. There wasn't actually anything outside, but it seemed as if it was in the reflection. I saw what looked like a tin man that looked much like this, standing not too far from me behind the couch. Needless to say, there wasn't actually anything there when I snapped my head around to look at the spot where it was standing in the reflection. I grabbed all my shit and wanted to get out of that house then and there. Instead, I ran upstairs and actually sat down quietly where the kids were sleeping until the parents got back home. For some reason, even though they were sleeping kids, being in the company of others calmed me a bit. I particularly remember when the parents came home and I had started to leave. I was pulling out of their driveway in my shitty old Ford Laser, and I looked up into the kids' bedroom window. The same fucking reflection I saw earlier was looking back down at me with a hand raised as if waving goodbye. I have never babysitted again. Not a home alone story, but more like an at work alone story. I work at Quickmart on the graveyard shifts. I'm the only one there for 8 hours. Well, I've been working here for about 5 months now, so I've gotten used to the sounds and all the weird noises. But when I first started, I was informed by a customer of an old man who used to work at this store, but he died of a stroke about 2 years back. So a couple days passed by and I was working a swing shift when the graveyard guy comes in to do the shift change. Me and him start talking, and he asks if I have any questions for around the store. I had everything down on lock by now, but he was like, "Hey Tats 22, let me show you something." Well, he pulls me in the back room and he shows me the old man's jacket. He went on to saying that our manager loved him and couldn't get rid of the jacket. My co-worker told me that sometimes on graveyards you will hear weird noises. So a couple more days go by. Explainable stuff happens and whatnot, as in a cooler door popping open and then closing. A Canon AZ iced tea will fall to the ground. It's all stuff with after a good explanation seems reasonable. Well, one night while working at Grave and being on Reddit as the usual, I hear a scuffling noise coming from the other side of the store. It goes on for about 5 seconds and I'm kind of freaked out. I start thinking, oh, what if it's this ghost trying to fuck with me? Well, I go look over there and there's a ramen packet by the sugar. It's probably a good 5 feet away from the container it's supposed to be in and is kind of angled like something was dragging it. So I got really curious. I went like CIA/FBI investigator status. I started setting up my iPhone to record for 30 minutes at a time, just trying to figure out what moved it. 2 30-minute recording sessions go by and the bag is still there. Hasn't moved an inch. Well, I say fuck it and pick up my phone and get back to work. Literally like 5 minutes later, I hear the scuffling noise again and get really paranoid about the ghost. The next day my manager comes in and asks how my night was. I kind of give her this weird look like, you hear shit when you work or what's up? Well, she says to me, "Oh, do you mean Frank?" And at this point I'm like, "Aw shit, there is a ghost." So I respond to her, "You mean the old man who died here 2 years ago?" She laughs and just says, "Oh, no. That's Bob. I mean Frank the mouse who eats all of our ramen packs. TLDR. A mouse in my gas station made me believe ghosts were real."